It's a pretty special Friday, and that means a pretty special edition of the Zogby Report, real and unscripted. I'm John, and there's Jeremy. And why is this special? Jeremy is at the University of Korça in Albania, recording this video right now. I am in somewhere undisclosed in the Adirondack Mountains in a cabin via my smartphone. And our producer, Ryan, is at our studio in Utica, the Mohawk Valley Community College's wonderful Thinkubator, where we do most of our shows. And by the miracle of technology, we give you this special report without missing a beat. Everybody, all systems go? Good.
Good.
So here's what I'd like to do today. I would like to review the Senate races. Most observers are now saying that the Democrats have about a 2/3 chance of holding on to the U.S. Senate and actually picking up some seats. The second thing I'd like to talk about, Jared, just for a little bit, is there such a thing as Trump fatigue? Whether you love him or you hate him, are people just sort of getting tired of all this? And will that be a factor? And then the third thing, given the special place that you're in, and not many people get to visit there from the United States, I'd like you to close out with some observations from very far away, 6 time zones in Korça, Albania. So how's that sound to you as a program?
That sounds good.
Okay, good. So let's start. Democrats appear to be in the driver's seat as far as the U.S. Senate races are concerned. I might also add that in terms of the House of Representatives, the races are getting tighter, and we may have some clue this coming Tuesday in a New York race, a special election in the 19th Congressional District, Mark Molinaro versus Pat Ryan, Republican Democrat, as to how the wind may blow in November. But let's look at the Senate. Since we have talked about the Senate before, what we have is in Pennsylvania, what appears, at least from the vantage point of now, is not a close race at all. Democrat John Fetterman pulling ahead of Mehmet Oz by up to as much as 14 points in the latest poll. So much so that this is a race that the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee has decided to withdraw $5 million of support from Dr. Oz, kind of throwing in the towel. You have Mandela Barnes, Democrat in Wisconsin, running against Ron Johnson, the incumbent Republican, a race that has been too close to call, but what we're seeing is Barnes, the Democrat, pulling ahead by about 4 or 5 points. As you have Raphael Warnock pulling ahead in defending his seat against Herschel Walker in Georgia, only 3 points, but there's been a consistent 3 or 4 polls now with Warnock ahead. Mark Kelly in Arizona had been a tight race, now leading by double digits in Arizona, and Catherine Cortez Masto also not running away with it, but a few polls consecutively now showing her leading Adam Laxalt, the Republican in Nevada. We have some time. You know, there's about 3 months to go until the election actually takes place. But these were all seats that Republicans hoped to pick up. And it looks like the Democrats may pick up possibly 2. New Hampshire, close, former governor and incumbent Senator Maggie Hassan running a close race, but 2 points ahead, really too close to call, Democrat in New Hampshire. What's happened? I mean, why this change in the Democrats' fortunes in both houses, but particularly the U.S. Senate?
Well, I'm going to have to defer to you because I've been inundated more on the international scene and have got to be honest with you, tuning out the political scene in the United States, with exception to, of course, the FBI raiding the Mar-a-Lago. That's all over the news everywhere. So why don't you tell me
All right.
what you think is among the key factor or key factors?
I think there's a few things, and I'm going to list them not in any special order. The growth of inflation is slowing down. The growth of inflation is slowing down to the point where the Federal Reserve may not actually raise interest rates the next time it meets. The price of gasoline at the pump is now averaging just under $4 from a high of $5.01 at the pump, and so that's a good sign. People are vacationing. On the economic front, you have a massive bill that's been passed by Congress that a majority of Americans supported, that has a strong piece for climate control, a strong piece for healthcare, and that Medicare can now negotiate prescription drug prices for senior citizens. And then a number of other key aspects in that bill. The next item is either Trump fatigue or the FBI and Justice Department out of control, or whatever it is. It does not appear to be playing well, at least thus far, with swing voters. Seems to have further energized the Democratic base and taking away some suburban women from the issue of education and critical race theory and so on, and onto a threat to democracy. And so there's been a kind of I think a number of things, plus the fact, I think, finally, that some of these Senate candidates that have won primaries have turned out to be duds. Certainly the case, it appears, with Dr. Oz and with Herschel Walker in Georgia. Those are two of the more notable ones. It appears that way as well with Blake Masters, an election 2020 denier in Arizona. So I think it's been a good couple of weeks for the Dems and a bad couple of weeks for the Republicans.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll go back to inflation and the perception that the economy is turning around, or however it's being framed, that inflation isn't ravaging it as much. That's true. That gas prices are down. The price of gas at the pump is down. And I'm seeing, what little bit of news I'm paying attention to on the domestic side in the United States. I'm seeing that. But the fact of the matter is while much of the media is focusing on gasoline, they're ignoring a lot of other things. Household staples, foodstuffs are not going down. Energy bills are not going down. A lot of other things, the cost of things, meat, are not going down. Coffee is not going down. Sugar is not going down. But yes, gas is, and that's important. But the fact remains that one item out of a basket of a number does not mean that inflation is under control. And the fact that the Federal Reserve is under Jerome Powell is signaling that they may not have to raise interest rates. To me, that's spin. Because look, it is not normal under any circumstances to have interest rates low for long periods of time. Remember, interest rates have been, I don't know, under 2% for at least a decade, if not more. And what they're starting to raise them up. Maybe it's up to 3, definitely not 4%. I'm almost positive about that. But the fact that Jerome Powell is signaling that we don't need to me, means they can't. In other words, they can't normalize interest rates, which means they have to keep them low. Because if they don't keep them low, the whole thing is going to blow up. Because what low interest rates have done, and let me be very technical here, forcibly low interest rates, interest rates brought low by the Federal Reserve, spawned the boom that we saw that led up to '08, and was the monetary policy that propped up the economy, which would have completely crashed after '08. So they've kept them low, and the Fed isn't caught between a rock and a hard place. If they keep them low for too long, that is going to generate more inflation, because that's going to encourage more lending. If they raise them at some point, that's going to prick the bubble. That is where the Federal Reserve is. They are walking a tightrope, very, very, very thin, small tightrope.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, so
let me continue. On the Mar-a-Lago raid, you know, you know what, you go ahead, and then I'll come back in with my observations. But go ahead.
Okay, yeah, let me just finish the Senate portion. There seems to be another factor at work, and that is that while the president, let's say, got a little bit of a boost in poll numbers, he had been averaging down as low as 38. In the last 4 polls, he's averaging 42. All right, so that's not a big bump, but it's notable. Anyway, it appears as if Democrats been able to develop a message going into November independent of Joe Biden and his fortunes. And so maybe a little bit of history is defied here come November. And instead of, as is usual, first-term president in a first off-year election loses seats, that perhaps in the Senate, all the combination of factors point to that the Dems actually build in the Senate, maybe even do better in the House than previously anticipated. But I do want to get into Mar-a-Lago, the impact of the raid at Mar-a-Lago, and bring in, if we can, the question of Trump fatigue or not. But go ahead.
So, yeah, I mean, I was here. I mean, I think I had only been here 2 days, and I saw the news, and I actually saw it in the headlines on the television here, on the local news and the national news here in this country. And, you know, it was quite dramatic, I have to say. And I don't think independent voters and swing voters are, we'll let the polls speak for themselves, but I think in the long run, I don't think they're going to be fooled by this, because the fact of the matter is a previous presidential candidate had some serious run-ins with the FBI. We all know who that was. That was Hillary Rodham Clinton. And Hillary, of course, had an email server with 20 to 30,000 emails that disappeared. And of course, they were obtained, but nobody ever really looked into it, and nobody ever followed up on that. That went right up to the election of 2016, and then everything turned into Russia collusion, right? And by my analysis, that is the prime Clinton playbook in the game of politics, where what you are guilty of, you blame on the opponent. That is classic Clintonian strategy. And so the public or the media shifted to Russia collusion. And ever since then, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and federal law enforcement have basically been in lockstep, going after Trump, along with the media, in any which way that they can, and they still are, because they know that he wants to run in 2024. And so I think the message is clear that the best way to get Trump out of the picture in 2024 is to nab him with something, to bust him with something. But I think the harder that they try, and the more that they go, and the more aggressive that they go at this, they lose their image of being impartial. The Department of Justice and the FBI, over the decades, had long held this brand, or this viewpoint by the public, that they were impartial. But I don't think swing voters and independent voters are going to buy that. I don't think they're going to forget the allegations and the possible wrongdoings of Hillary Clinton and just go along with, well, it's just Trump. In fact, I think enough of them are going to say, wow, this really makes the FBI look bad. First of all, unless I've missed the news, they haven't even released the warrant, made it public. And so what's going on here? Why is the FBI singularly going after Trump when we know that the leader of the DNC, not necessarily the leader, but one of the people or former people at the helm of the DNC had all of these allegations and all of this potential corruption, and just push it aside? It becomes political. And the FBI and the DOJ are supposed to be impartial. And I think that's really going to turn off swing voters and independents. So essentially, the harder they push, the harder they go after, I think that they're going to negate any Trump fatigue that there may be. And I think that Trump is unfortunately a master of taking these things and bringing them into his advantage. It's just a game that I think he knows how to play all too well.
This is one of those rare moments where I'm going to say I disagree with pretty much everything you just said. And I'm not going to belabor it, but first of all, just you are aware, federal judge has come close to ruling that that the actual subpoena that was utilized by the Justice Department and then onto the FBI can be released, however redacted, to both protect names of individuals, but also to not reveal too much about the case that the Justice Department is seeking to make until that case can be made and the evidence can be researched. And so that's where that stands. But I will just end my comments by saying, where there's smoke, there's fire, and this is looking more and more like a California wildfire to me. In terms of Hillary Clinton, some things just move into the past and no longer relevant. She has no position. She was not elected to anything. She's not in great demand in terms of the speaking tour. She's sort of out of it, and I guess that's her permanent punishment for whatever it is she may have done. But I'm ready to now just ask you for your observations, being 6 time zones away. What are the sorts of things what new perspectives or reinforced perspectives do you have, having been away now for about 10 days?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll just close by saying you're right. I am away. And you did say that they're going to release it, but it's going to be heavily redacted. Why does it need to be redacted? If I'm not mistaken, I read something on the effect that the federal judge who issued this warrant was on the defense team of Jeffrey Epstein. So the reason I mention that is because I don't know if Trump is going to pull that card, but remember, this is a guy who hired Roger Stone. And Roger Stone knows all the dirty tricks in the games of politics. And so that is in his bag. Let's say that that is a last resort, that if it becomes problematic, this is something that may come up. Don't think that we're done with this stuff. This stuff keeps popping up. Just go back to the weeks preceding the 2016 election and all the things that came out on both sides. It's quite unbelievable, the kind of news stories that come out weeks in advance of elections. That's why they call it the October surprise. But this place is fascinating. Of course, the Balkans are fascinating, but I mean, just off the top of my head, in no special order, this city, of course, you can see back here, this is the largest Orthodox cathedral, I believe, in the Balkans, if not, a large part of the Balkans. It's called Jesus Reborn. This is a city of probably about 70% Muslim, 30% Christian. In this part of the region, all of the Christians are Orthodox. In the north of the country, they're Catholic. But the amazing thing is that the people mingle together. They intermarry, no problem. Religion is not a factor, is not a problem. In fact, the Muslims celebrate Christmas, they celebrate Easter. People are very much over any religious hostility. I don't think it's been a thing for a long time. Unfortunately, that is not the case in other parts of the world, like the Middle East and Africa. But I think that's an amazing thing, and amazing thing for Albanians to be proud of. Another thing that I noticed, by the way, just some brief history, for those who don't know, the Albanian communist regime was actually the second most totalitarian during the Cold War, only really surpassed by North Korea. But that's how much in check the people were and how much power Hoxha, the dictator, had. So much that if you go around the city, to this day, there are bunkers, little bunkers where people were told that they were constantly being invaded by foreigners. And this is how the dictator kept people in check, and also didn't allow them to travel outside of the borders and go on holiday, but that they would have to flee to these bunkers, and there's a network of catacombs or roads underneath the streets here for these paranoid foreign invasions that never were. And so the reason I bring that up is because the Albanians are no stranger to the phenomenon of fear. They lived in fear for decades. And, when I turn on the news here, and I'm fascinated that I see a lot of similar things. I see a lot of fear in the media. And so I've been asking people that I've had the chance to meet with, what do you think of the media reporting? And unanimously, I'm hearing the same thing. I'm hearing them say, oh, when you turn on the media, it's all just emergency. It's all just fear. And so I find that amazing, that I guess I shouldn't. People who were so used to fear can recognize that their own media coverage of not just events in the country, but internationally, are fear-based. And it's very, very, even though I don't understand the language, the imagery is almost the same thing that you would see if you turn on the news back in the United States. And so I find that very fascinating. And so those are just a couple observations off the top of my head.
Boy, thanks for those observations, and continue to have a wonderful trip. And I'm reminded of the U.S. pollster who nailed the first Albanian parliamentary elections right down to the very seat, 1-seat majority. Do you know who that pollster was?
Wow, could that have been Zogby?
Yes, it was, as a matter of fact. Yep, we nailed that, and look forward to seeing you back here. But enjoy the rest of your trip. I love you. Take care.
Love you too. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.